So about BF6. So do you think we're gonna get the reveal tomorrow? Because it's my birthday tomorrow. So maybe I don't know. Maybe
Really?
they're playing 4D chess and they're going.
Maybe you're actually on like you've climbed to the top of Dice's
Yeah,
whitelist where they're just like Ender's birthday. That's we're gonna make that the reveal,
yeah,
guys.
for sure. I'm sure that
That's
happened.
got to be it, dude.
It has to be that. It would kind of make sense if the reveal's tomorrow because it's mid-June and it's people's expectations. I heavily doubt it though. I don't think we're gonna get it.
Yeah.
I actually think there's a good chance that we don't get it in June, which might be abnormal, but I can't shake EA CEO Andrew Wilson saying in the earnings call deliberately, we're leaving the window open to delay the game. Like, they don't just say that. Andrew Wilson doesn't just say that randomly in an earnings call to like investors. That's deliberately put in there. So maybe the game will be delayed and we have to wait until, I don't know, March something 2026 and the reveal will be later. That would be unfortunate. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think, yeah, like you say, the reveal kind of depends on what their planned release date is, right? And all they've said so far is that it's coming by the end of next March. So that could really mean anything. Like it could be as late as games come in August. But personally, I think they're probably just gonna drop like an announcement for an announcement. I reckon what'll happen is Kevin will go on Twitter and he'll say, guys, there's a premiered video tomorrow. That's going to be a teaser, maybe with a name drop. And then that will be an announcement that in like a week's time, there's going to be like a deep dive event.
Okay.
So that they can get the press in and whatnot.
What do you think about the Jack Frags number thing? Because there are all sorts of theories. I covered one where a guy was subtracting all the numbers from each other in a certain combination, and 69 kept coming up. And based on the upload date of the video, June 11th, 69 days away from June 11th, is Gamescom opening night. Holy shit. Yeah. Like, so that's the big speculation right now, I guess.
Like that meme with the guy with all the strings on the board.
Yes.
Like, what does it mean?
I use that picture in the video. I go, guys, this video is going to be exactly like this picture right here.
Yeah, I did scroll through, like, I think I found it on a Reddit comment or a Reddit post, and I looked through some of the comments and the theories. I was like, I don't know, dude. Jack Frank's, sure, he's a big content creator, but I just don't buy that they're like, Jack, we're going to let you, like, tease the reveal for the game.
You know what? I actually do buy that. I think he's played BF7. Yeah. I think he's played, like, BF7 after BF6 already. I really do.
That's like the running meme, right? Like, yeah, we all know Jack's designing the game.
No, we know this. Like, this is not this is not secret information. I do think it would be, I do think the window of opportunity for Battlefield is like as free as ever, though. So even if they do decide to reveal the game later or release the game later into 2026, I'm not really worried about it anymore. I used to be like, oh my god, they have to release the game this year. Obviously the extra wait would suck if we had to wait, because knowing it, we've basically waited since honestly the start of BF5. That's my opinion. Like, some people like BF5 more than others. I did not. So the wait really was like, it's gonna be like 8 years at this point for some people, 8.5 if they push it towards 2026. So
yeah, I think, I don't think they're that worried about GTA 6 personally. Like, especially since if it comes out in March, like, I think what they could do is just like, okay, the game comes out, and then whenever GTA 6 launches, they just say, well, we're not going to put out like a season then. We'll just take a breather, and then like once a month after that game or something, or a few weeks after, then they just say, okay, let's just continue. It's like, sure, it's going to have some kind of an effect, but like, every game does. Games come out and people play them all the time, right? And they're going to put their main game down for a while they do that. So I don't think they're stressing too much about it. But I don't know, partly like based on like what we've seen from leaks and stuff, I wouldn't be like against it coming out next year, just so it's like more of a given that it's going to release in like a half decent state.
Yeah,
which never happens.
and that's a great segue into the most important thing about the release, which is, I've said for a long time, the first impressions of the game, which may or may not have already happened due to the leaks, but the real first impression of the game is like the most important thing possible. Because if you remember with 2042, as soon as people see how messed up that game is, it's over. It really is. Like,
Yeah.
you cannot have all these articles saying game's a complete mess. You can't have the most amazing thing about your game being posted on Reddit and everywhere being just how buggy it is and how catastrophically unfinished it is with zero content. The first impression of BF6, delay the game to save the first impression. It's literally that important. They have to do it that way, in my opinion.
Yeah. Especially with like what people are like on Steam reviews these days, right?
Oh my god.
Like, people will leave you a negative
Unless you're
review.
Delta Force.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe they need to call up like Team Jade, man, who made Delta Force and be like, "Yo guys, how are you doing these numbers?"
Dude, it's funny.
What's going on?
A bit of a off topic. Have you seen people getting copyright striked for that?
Yeah.
Maxic
Neon
tweeted.
and,
I think Maxic or someone tweeted. They don't actually know what's going on, and they're gonna figure it out. Good.
Yeah.
So that's great for creator trust. Anyway, I guess we'll segue into the. What do you want to do? Movement or class system next?
We can go classes if you want, because I did have a point to sort of tag on to the end of what you were saying before. Like, I think there's a lot of different things to look at with it, but just based on that, just based on the community perception and what I would say the majority want, which seems to be locked classes.
Yes.
Like, just that small thing is enough for people to go to Steam and be like,
yep,
negative review, boom.
And that's why I've been so adamant in every video that I make. I say, guys, it doesn't matter what my personal opinion is. I'm aware, for the pure community perception of BF6, it is absolutely essential they listen to the community on this issue because of the exact thing you just mentioned. The Battlefield community is petty like that, dude. One little tiny thing that is super important in their eyes that you don't do, it's like the absolute end of the world. They will complain about it forever. Same thing with the server browser. Same thing with a bunch of other things. But my whole thing with the class system is, okay, we take a look at the way BF6 class system like allegedly works. So what they're doing is, at a base level, is in BF6 they're trying to define the classes via means other than weapons playing a defining role. And they're trying to bolster the class's importance via traits and these other aspects they're trying to add. But people want weapons to play a defining role. In their mind, they feel like to use a certain weapon type, you have to play a certain class. And in other people's minds, it helps the readability of the gameplay and all that sort of thing. So you have to give them what they want in that aspect. But the thing that's been so confusing with me this whole time is they're begging for class-locked weapons, and they go and ask for a system like Battlefield 4's weapon system, which does not really do that. Like, and that's been a huge misunderstanding.
Neither here nor there in a way. Yeah.
Like, okay, you want the BF4 class weapon system. If they want it, no, give it to them. I'm just saying, like, it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to give them that if they want weapons to play a defining role. They should go give them the BF1 or like BF3 system where it's really strict. And I've made an entire video where I outline, exactly how I'd go about class locking weapons and all this sort of stuff. I think they want stricter weapon restrictions to really define the classes on top of the gadgets and the traits doing it.
I think like a big issue with Battlefield's community is that DICE have all through Battlefield 2042 and even BF5, they've had this kind of hardline approach where like we know what's best. The community, you don't know. And they've proven time and time again that they actually don't know what they're doing. And usually what the community has said is correct. And just to draw an example, and not because I was personally involved in it, but the whole thing with the squad kick feature, right? They were just like, they literally had, a team at EA, I believe, who were in charge of like anti-toxicity stuff, right? So they were that was like one of their mandates. They were like, no, we can't have a kick feature. So they didn't want to have that, and then they ended up sort of doing a 180, listening to the community, getting rid of it. And what effect did it have on the game? Like, literally none.
Yeah.
Like, it might not be the best metaphor because the class system does have a big effect on the game. But I think because of these experiences, the community just do not want to trust DICE and EA at all. And they just kind of think, like what we feel is correct because you've never proven when you take a new approach that it's the right one, like specialists and stuff. So they're kind of like wary in that regard.
Yeah, it's a great point. The community really,
but you can't blame them either.
No, you can't blame them. And I'm in the boat too. Like, hey, you guys need to prove it to us, right? Again, like they need to win the community's trust back with their decision making. And I think a lot of that comes with just giving people what they've been asking for this whole time. That's with the server browser. That's with, a bunch of these community features. Like people have been begging for platoons to come back. People have been begging for, a really fleshed out squad management to be in the game. Of course, a scoreboard on launch and all these other legacy features, right? They actually did call them legacy features, which is crazy. There's an anti-toxicity team at EA with that that did not want squad kicking in the game.
I don't remember how I discovered that. I think I found it on like looking at Glassdoor reviews or something, that they brought in this team at some point and then they were dissolved because they realized like, what the fuck are we doing?
Dude, I had to be I must have been like a wanted poster on their wall or something in that office. That's crazy. Yeah. Oh no.
Could have been. But yeah, like I think as well with the class system, it is kind of two aspects, and for me, like gameplay wise, I don't know if I'm that against it being open. Like I'm up for seeing what they can do with it. Like I think if the proficiencies or whatever they're called, if they can do that right, which they clearly couldn't in Battlefield 2042, then like maybe it's going to be okay. But on the other end of the spectrum, I do think that like the classes and Battlefield in general loses some of its intrinsic Battlefield formula.
Yes.
Like, and maybe more so in some classes than others. If I think about Recon, like I'm not really thinking, oh, look, like I'm running around with a Tugs beacon and a spawn. I'm just thinking I'm a dude with a sniper rifle.
Yes.
That's like, if I had to draw a Recon soldier, I draw a dude in a ghillie suit with a sniper rifle. Assault and stuff, not so much. Yeah, okay, you've got an assault rifle, but it's maybe more so the gadgets that come with it as well.
It's more open in terms of, I suppose, what they can use. Because it's just down to the way they balance the weapons, right? Assault rifles are only defined by really the way their damage models are. That's the only thing that separates them between carbines and other weapons in the game. It's basically just math defining the weapons. So
yeah.
But yeah, with 2042, it's proven to me that I personally don't. I used to think I cared about the class system. I guess my gameplay is personally completely unaffected by not having a class system in the game, and that I guess it just comes down to just the way that I play. Like, but what I've also noticed is leaving weapons open and allowing you to use any weapon in any class, especially in a game of specialists. Once I find my 2 or 3 specialists I play, I'm not playing anything else. Like you can look at my you can look at my my playtime on my stats. I want to say I'm mastery level maybe 5,600 on McKay.
Yeah.
With like 330,000 kills.
And then Falk's got to be in second place, presumably.
Falk is in second place with, get this, 60.
What, kills?
60 mastery level.
Okay.
In comparison to 5,000 something.
Yeah.
That's how little I've had. That's how little I felt pressure to switch classes in 2042. To take care of any situation. I simply do not have to do that. Because McCade does everything, right? But that's more of an issue with specialists other than classes. But I'm just saying, if they leave weapons open, I'm playing medic. I'm healing myself permanently, and that's the gameplay.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people disagree with this, I think, but that's why I didn't like Battlefield 4's assault class. And I think that's one of the things they quoted was that, oh, you know, the data has shown that, like in Battlefield 4, everybody played assault. So surely assault rifles must be overpowered, and they're locked to that class, so everybody plays it. But they also had revives, and they also had heals.
Yes.
And like, for me, that's where I'm going. I'm going to the medic class. Like, in anything that lets me heal and stay alive longer, unless I need to kill a vehicle, that's where I'm going to be at. That's why I never really play recon. I'm like, that is the one class, in my opinion, they need to really like figure out. I don't know. They need to give it some like.
They're trying to do that
or something.
In BF6. It looks like they're trying to give it what in the leaks that suggested mortar strikes, and it automatically spots you if you aim at somebody, and then if you body shot somebody, they're with a bolt action, they can't regen health, and on top of that, if you hit them, they're spotted. It's like, holy shit. I think it's a slippery slope with recon, because okay, if their purpose is reconnaissance, spotting a bunch of people, you have to be so deliberate and so careful with how much spotting and how easy you make spotting in Battlefield, because in 2042 spotting is insanely strong. Like, you play Casper, you play these Blasco classes, you know, you set down a Blasco jammer, and I swear to God, after this podcast is over, I'm going to play the game, and I'm going to see this exact thing. These Blasco players put a tugs down in their jammer radius, and they never move, and they farm 200 assists a game, perma-spotting my team. Okay? So spotting is a very slippery slope. They need to be very careful with how they go about, if they're going to take that route of defining recon or making it more important in the gameplay. I don't even really have an ideas of how they could do that. I think they just need to make sure they give recon good tools like the spawn beacon, and in my opinion also C4, because that's how it was in Battlefield 4, to give it something else, right? Don't give them these drones. You know, I wasn't a fan of the Casper drone, because inevitably what happens, I'm sure you've noticed this, your team, especially, even on Redacted, like I was going to say especially outdoor maps, but even on Redacted, there's always that one Casper drone that's left in the air the entire game, and you can't shoot it because, of course, the fucking hit reg doesn't work on it. You see shots dusting off of it, and your team is spotted for the whole game. So if they need to take some things away, they need to give them some things, but... Yeah.
Well, you know, as we know, KDR doesn't matter in this, so...
I guess now we could talk about, since we talked about you getting shit on by everybody on your YouTube video, we could talk about the Battlefield 6 movement stuff. And just movement in Battlefield in general. And you've had an interesting experience recently with one of the most controversial games when it comes to Battlefield movement. You said you don't play Battlefield 1 very much. And you've been playing it recently. So what is your what has your experience been with Battlefield 1's gameplay recently?
It's been a learning experience, that's for sure. So like, just for transparency's sake, I kind of stopped playing Battlefield once BF1 came out, mainly just because I didn't really like the vehicle play. And I kind of came in towards the end of BF5. So like, I've never really played the game. So I decided to revisit it, you know, put some new gameplay on YouTube and whatnot. And then I realized that there's just like no movement mechanics. It seems very slow. Like, there's no tactical sprint. There is a slide, but it seems kind of pointless to use it. Even mantling, like, you know, sometimes in a gunfight, you try to kind of get them from an unexpected angle, maybe mantle over the wall, but that usually ends up in you dying as well. So to me, it just feels like you don't have as many options when you're playing infantry, you know. And it's more, you're rewarded for taking it slower, which, from my experience, seems to like increase the number of campers, like the number of people who are just holding corners, prone on the ground, in a corner, on a flag. You know, you get rewarded for that sort of play more.
And there's no way to skillfully sort of brute force that there's no way to sort of skillfully brute force via movement mechanics and sort of outplay that guy. Okay, so there's a guy camping in a corner. I hit a slide in the open and I turn on him and he dies, right? Like, or
exactly.
I know he's close to the corner. He's prone. I slide around the door and I shoot him in the face and he dies. Boom. Like,
no,
and you can't do that in BF1.
Positioning, and that's pretty much it. Like,
yeah. And it's a shame with that BF1 stuff. And this is what I'm afraid. This is why I'm afraid of this happening in BF6. BF1 was specifically designed with the slide in mind. People don't talk about this enough, in my opinion. When they were making Battlefield 1's gameplay, they were designing it with the fact that there was a movement option in mind. The first slide nerf in BF1, I think it had something to do with fixing hitboxes. Maybe someone in the chat can absolutely, make sure I'm correct on that. But it had something to do with fixing the hitbox of it. But the second slide nerf essentially effectively removed its usefulness from the game. And the slide became a purely defensive action, which some people really argue for. But it was so like brutal. It was such a removal of the effectiveness of the slide that it heavily hindered Battlefield 1's gameplay, because they didn't replace that movement option with anything else. Because you can't jump peek in BF1 either, which is extremely abnormal for Battlefield gameplay. You also can't crouch spam, and they also nerfed strafing. So every single thing you can do in BF1 was either basically useless in gameplay or heavily nerfed. So
I noticed that as well, that strafing is super slow.
Yeah.
So
they nerfed that too.
If somebody is holding an angle and you strafe out there, like, you're a dead man. Almost always, it feels like.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the Battlefield community's opinions for this are, some people argue, oh, the BF1 movement post nerfs matches the setting of the game more. And I've always felt arguing how the movement should be based on the setting is like such a bullshit argument when it comes to Battlefield, because we can go back and look at other Battlefield games such as, BF2 or BF3 and BF4. Like, what about movement is setting based? I've just never understood the argument. Like, oh, and this is where BF5 comes in, because the joke is always, oh, sliding wasn't invented until World War II or something. Like, what's the big deal with these? What's the big deal if it's in a World War I game? I just don't understand the setting argument. But then a lot of other people, and this is where you see a ton of people on Reddit and a ton of people in YouTube comments, they always reiterate this. Movement is a very touchy subject, because as soon as you mention the fact that you're in support of jump peeking or crouch spamming or the sprint speed being like an average acceptable sprint speed, a lot of community members always jump the gun and immediately think, okay, you want, Titanfall, you want Call of Duty, you want to jump off the walls or any of this stuff. And I just feel like there's almost never a solid conversation about it. It always devolves.
Yeah, there's like no in between. There's one or there's the other.
And I tried to fix that slightly. I made a video called The History of Battlefield Movement, which featured a lot of things people didn't know about. And I made a second video that actually showed movement examples per game, like from very talented players. And
I think I saw that, right? I think you were showing some BF4 stuff, like with the Zuzu and
no, I left that out.
Craziness. Oh, really? Okay.
I left all that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like unintended stuff that can be used in gameplay. But I focused on the things that really were in the game, and I just showed people, like, this is how Battlefield plays. Like, and I think that might be part of the problem. The Battlefield community doesn't really know how Battlefield plays sometimes. They have their perspective, and I do think console in particular does skew people's perception of how Battlefield plays, because if you look at BF1 console gameplay versus BF1 PC, or BF4 console versus BF4 PC, they're very different, right? The way the game looks and plays is very different. but that doesn't mean the games are any different. You know, it's just you can still do the things you can do on console that you can do on PC for the most part, including like on BF4, the ADS stabilization jump. You can still do that on controller.
Yeah. I think the FOV plays a big part there as well.
Yeah, the FOV as well. That was something people were getting really fooled about in BF6 gameplay. You would see gameplay from somebody that looks like they haven't gone in the settings menu, and people would be like, oh man, we're so back, like the movement looks weighty and grounded. And then you see someone that is maybe not even a more skilled player, they just went in the settings menu and turned the FOV up, and they're like, oh my god, this looks way too fast. It's like,
yeah,
what?
Honestly, from what I've seen, I think it looks like it's in a good spot. Like, there are movement mechanics, there is a slide, there's no tack sprint. There is, like, I think I've seen some clips of, like, you know, you can go prone sort of on your back.
Yeah.
What they call it, supine or something, right? But then somebody will upload some small video, like, I think there was a Chinese leaker, and he was dolphin diving, like, to the left and the right down all these alleyways and stuff.
Yeah,
but every time he did it, he died.
Yeah.
But still people got annoyed about it because they were like, what? Like, this is possible? Yeah, but he died. So this clearly showcases that this is not a good idea. Like, this is clearly designed more to, like, to get into cover, to get out of dodge, not as an offensive ability.
Yeah.
You probably can use it offensively in some situations, but I would guess you're going to die as much as you're not.
I think I remember the thread you were talking about, and I commented on there. I said, this action not only is being able to shoot your weapon delayed, right? So it's not like you can dive and shoot seamlessly. You can dive, and there's a period of probably about a half a second that you have to wait until you hit the ground, then you can shoot. If you're playing against any sort of decent player, even a mediocre player that's just looking at where you are while you're doing it, if they're looking at their monitor, they're probably going to kill you in that situation. So it's not like it's super fluid. And I was telling them, like, this action looks, again, like you said, purely defensive, and 99.9% of the time, if you try to use this aggressively, you are just not going to survive in that situation. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong. At the same time, I don't want, like, incredibly cheesy mechanics, like being able to bunny hop halfway across the battlefield and
like
stuff like that to be in there. Yeah, like, that's pretty cheap. Like, I do it because it's in the game, and
of course,
like, I'm going to do it if that's the best way to approach a certain situation, then that's what I'm going to use, right? But I still I understand when people are like, dude, this is cheesy as heck.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like, I've played McKay for, I don't even know, probably 2,000 something hours. Like I said, I am an absolute master when it comes to grapple hooking and jumping at literally 80 meters, jumping in a straight line.
And to be fair, there is a skill gap in that. That does add something to it's.
It's not that big. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it's real easy to do in 2042.
Well, how many people don't know how to do it? Would you guess?
I don't know. I mean, this is how bunny hopping with McKay works in that game. You literally jump, slide in midair, so you land sliding, jump again, grapple hook, then you land sliding again, and then you literally just jump in a straight line, and you just time the jump.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's like what?
Right, but
4 buttons.
The majority still don't know how to do that, though.
I guess.
Like,
I understand.
You know,
like, I get people don't want me to or other people to be able to jump 80 meters in a straight line. Like, I totally understand that, and if they remove that from the game, or like the real core of it is you're able to increase momentum based on jumping and then chaining jumps, right? Especially when you do it downhill. So you can jump, land sliding, you gain the momentum from going downhill, then you can carry that momentum a great distance with jumping. That is the core of what people, I think, don't like, on top of just the ability to chain jumps in general. I get that. I just don't want an X-Defiant situation where, for instance, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but I'll explain it for people that maybe are listening to this.
I played it a couple of games.
X-Defiant was on this whole like anti-movement spam thing where they really tried to limit the amount of actions you could do in a row, and past a certain amount of jumps in place, your crosshair would do not a slight figure eight, like a hard figure eight, and it was horrible feeling. So I think I'm not a fan of that type of penalty. I would be more in favor of something like Battlefield 5 when it comes to jumping like that, where you don't really have any side-to-side movement while you're jumping while shooting. But if you're jumping while shooting, if you remember in that game, your sight was like all over the place. That is a better way of doing it, in my opinion, because it was difficult enough to do it where you would really have to know what you're doing. You know, like you couldn't just spam it. It was something you really had to get used to and learn. Because for each individual weapon, the way the sight moved in BF5 was different when you were jumping while shooting. So you did have to understand this weapon has a certain animation and I have to aim a certain way if I'm going to actually do that. On top of having to place it correctly. Because we'll get into jump peeking. People hate, a lot of people hate jump peeking in Battlefield, but it really is one of the most important things for a skill gap in a Battlefield game, because we saw this in Battlefield 1. When you don't have jump peeking, it's almost impossible to sort of brute force a situation with skill where a guy is holding a doorway or head glitching somewhere. And the reality is, a lot of the time, if you're dying to someone that's jump peeking in Battlefield, you kind of did get outplayed, because even in games like 2042, I'm in the open. Like, I am flying myself in the open a lot of the time, even if I'm timing it well and I'm placing it well and I'm aware of what cover's there and I'm trying to make the fight a 1v1. If you're in a head glitch with any sort of good aim, you're going to kill that player most of the time, especially if you notice you don't have to take that fight. That's what people miss a lot of times. The person on the head glitch or the person that's getting jump peeked, if you're in cover, just crouch. A lot of the times the person that jump peeked is like, oh shit, now what do I do?
Yeah, I mean, they're the one taking the risk.
Exactly. You know? They're the one with the risk in the situation.
I kind of think what rubs people the wrong way, though, is like players who use these mechanics to their advantage, they're generally good players. Like, you don't really see somebody with super trash aim who's also using all these movement. Like, the two, I'm not saying always, but usually kind of go hand in hand. And I think people just want something to blame for when they die to a good player.
Yeah.
You know, because it takes a big man to say, oh, I just suck. Like, I got outplayed. I'm just not as good as that guy. Like, people just can't say that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I think they generally try to just blame something for it. But in my opinion,
here's my opinion on that. How is that my fucking problem, you know?
Yeah, I'm saying, like,
why is that the game's problem? why should we change the game?
If they remove an ability, that player is still going to beat the other player. They're just not going to have, let's say, sliding in.
And that's what happens. BF1 is living proof. But if I boot up BF1, exactly. I still have a 4.5 kill per minute. Nothing has changed. Like, because I understand how to position. You can give me all these extra movement mechanics that I'll use, but you can also take him away. And guess what? Like, I'm gonna be really actively fucking annoyed about it. However, I'm still gonna position, and you will still lose most of the time.
Like, it's almost like if you kill me in such an unhonorable manner as to jump around a corner and shoot me, I'm pissed off. But if you snipe me from afar or something, or just, you know, peek me around a corner very slowly and shoot me, I'll be like, well played, sir. Well played.
Yeah.
Now it's no
Especially
problem,
if you sweet spot me by accident in BF1, I will really commend you for that.
Yeah.
I think the core of it is, I understand people don't want insane, like, crazy movement in Battlefield, but I want what Battlefield has always really excelled at, which is having movement that's accessible and understandable and easy to pick up, that simultaneously offers something to learn. And a game that perfectly does that is Battlefield 4. We're not talking about any of the movement glitches. That's obviously, you know, Vuzu, Zuzu, Ruzu, Muzu. Those are all real, by the way. Those are like unintended. But BF4 air strafing, BF4 crouch spam. The strafe speed wasn't, you know, so fast, but it wasn't so slow. There was stuff to learn. And I don't think gameplay depth is a bad thing. I just don't. No. Even if like 1% of players are going to reach like an elite level, it's still 1% of players. That's what I don't understand in a lot of these arguments. Like, people try to make it seem like they're playing against competitive players every game. It's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
I barely see this, you know?
Well, that's the good thing about Battlefield, in my opinion, is that there is sort of a place for all kinds of players.
Yeah.
Because first of all, well, hopefully there's not strong SBMM.
Oh
But
my
second
God.
of all, you've got all these different roles, right? That you can, like, if you're not a great like infantry player or whatever, and you enjoy, you know, just like throwing down med bags and reviving people and putting down spawn beacons and maybe sniping from afar, then like, fair enough. Like, you can go and do that. So it's, you know, everybody can fill some sort of a role in the game, whether it's, you know, using stingers to lock onto aircraft, my friggin' worst enemies. But like, I understand it, right? Like, they're not maybe that great at using stuff like what is it called, the one in BF4 that like the SRAW, you know, it's kind of a skill weapon, right? So they use a stinger instead, and that's like totally fine. Like, I understand some people just play the game every once in a while. They don't have the time and dedication to put into it to become really good. But that's really like the beauty of Battlefield, right? You've got room for those players, and also they're really good players as well, and it's all just kind of mixed in one bag.
Yeah. And really, the core of what I want with like BF6, I'm looking at the leaks. The movement looks totally fine, in my opinion. I don't think they really need to make any changes to it. I've seen people jump peak. I've seen people do all this sort of stuff. It looks acceptable. Okay, but what I don't want to see happen is the community continues to complain and they just gut everything. And then like, all that depth is gone. For what reason? You know, like,
I don't know, like with the whole labs thing and them making the game with us, the community, I feel like they are, but I also get the feeling that they're not going to budge on a lot of stuff. For example, the class system.
I'm sure they won't, actually. Like, you're probably right about that. I don't think they will make huge fundamental changes like that, where they completely redesign the entire class system. And maybe they will. Maybe we're both wrong. But if history says anything, DICE is pretty dead set in what they're going to do on particular things. I would be very surprised to see them 180 on that.
Yeah, I think the blog that they put out about that was very much a...
this is our direction.
This is our direction. We're trying to make you understand.
Yes.
Not a, oh, what do you guys think about this? Let us know.
Yeah.
Of course, we did regardless. But yeah, I would be extremely surprised. But I think some people are also saying like, well, they're supposed to be making the game with us, so why can't they change that? Why they're actually doing it, though, is it really worth all of the trouble? Is it worth, like we were talking about earlier, the potential negative reviews on Steam, yada, yada, yada? There's a part of me that just thinks it's business-minded, partially, because of cosmetics. The same reason they put specialists in Battlefield 2042.
That is one of the things people have been saying. Open weapons allow people to use the skins they bought on every class.
Yeah,
and I can't deny that that's actually true. And they probably know that.
Yeah. Somebody else pointed out, I think on my Twitter a while ago, a really good point, that when they make the
Why would
seasonal
you not
content,
adopt if you're not
they don't
capable of
really
dodging
have
the
to make
knot?
as many
If you
weapons
can't
if
even
they're
have
all
it, how can
open.
you expect to not?
Like, they can potentially just be like, okay, we've got 2 or 3 weapons and anyone can use them. So here you go, guys. Whereas if everything's locked, then you're like leaving out, you know, the recon player or whatever, or you're saying like, well, you want to use a new assault rifle, you got to play the assault class, even if you don't want to. Maybe like a minor thing there, but I don't know. I really hope they give us more content with each season this time.
Oh, it's a complete non-negotiable for me. Absolutely non-negotiable. If they do not give us, dude, bare minimum acceptable content for me is, let's say the seasons or whatever, every I think 4 months. Two brand new maps per 4 months minimum, on top of at least 4 to 6 new weapons that in that sort of area. I've spoken to people that make weapons and design this sort of stuff for games. It doesn't take that long. It really doesn't. The balancing aspect of the weapons is actually the part that takes that long. It's not really, from what I've heard from people that actually make this stuff, the animations and all that, you give someone that as their daily task for about 3 days, done. Should be done, for especially for a big studio such as, you know, DICE and all these other studios like Criterion and all these other guys. They should be able to hammer that out just fine. So I don't think that, I don't think 2 maps per season with 4 to 6 weapons on top of you know, battle pass and assignments and whatever else they have, that is bare minimum for me.
They need to just get ahead like they weren't in Battlefield 2042, right? It was so evident that that game came out and you know, they didn't have a single thing ready for season 1, and then they had to fix the game, of course. So hopefully this time they've actually got something prepared for season 1, season 0, whatever they call it. Yeah, man.
So you're talking about stingers now that are the bane of your existence. That vehicles, vehicle design in BF6, huge thing for actually me as well. Because I don't know if you know this, I used to fly in BF3 and 4 as like my main gameplay. In attack, attack helicopters, attack jets, stealth jets, dogfighting, all that sort of stuff. And in tanks as well. I loved BF4's vehicle design. BF4's vehicle design has yet to be topped. And I think if BF6 doesn't use BF4's vehicles as a baseline in terms of mechanics, things like the way infantry versus vehicle balance was done with tanks, right? And the way reactive armor worked on tanks and speed control in jets, all these mechanics, the weight of helicopters. If they're not basing BF6 off that, it's just going to be another game where vehicles feel lackluster, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, my feeling is that they know that that's the best system, and if they wanted to use it, they would have just copied it. And it looks like they haven't done that. And I think it's because they just want to make it more casual. Because you'll know, right? BF4 jets, if you don't get the speed, like the difference between going in like 250
and 313.
Is it kilometers an hour, knots or something? Whatever the number is, whatever the unit is, I think it's kilometers per hour. And 315 is like you're turning half the speed.
Yes.
Even though the number is like 50 less.
I like that though.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it's very unintuitive to a lot of people. And they're like, oh, dude. They probably looked again at data and said, there's only like less than 5% of the player base using the jets. That's not great.
I don't think that's a bad thing. I think
probably
in 2042. I don't know. In 2042, one of the biggest problems I've noticed with vehicles is that it's a lot easier for people to just jump in them and be effective. And I don't think you actually want that to happen. Because vehicles are a very powerful tool. Like, if you have a great tanker or a great heli team, they will run the server, you know? Within reason. You know, people say there's not enough AA. We've both flown there's a lot of AA. All right, that probably half the game is avoiding death, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't think you want a lot of people being generally fairly effective in vehicles, because it just sort of waters things down, in my opinion. I really like when you actually have to spend time in the vehicles and learn things and understand like the little tiny aspects, like speed control, like seat switching, like you know, in BF4 people would fucking jump out of the helicopter to the gunner would have fire extinguisher, the pilot would have flares or whatever. I think the setup was. You know what I'm talking about. They would jump out, seat switch, jump back in midair, then they do it again. It was insane, the stuff people theory crafted. Now, whether or not that's actually fair, you know, that's another debate. But I would love to see. I think there may be a middle ground here where you can go, okay, BF1 and 2042 vehicles and BF5 to a certain extent were maybe too simple in some areas, but we don't want the massive skill ceiling of BF4 vehicles necessarily. And there, like I said, massive. There's somewhere in between there where it could be acceptable, you know?
Yeah. I think, you know, with that big skill ceiling, you do end up with these like amazing players, and you'll know from the jets and stuff, there were all kind of crazy maneuvers, you know, you can pull off there, like
Jose Mar and a lot of these other dogfighters, dude. I was pretty good at dogfighting. I was like, if a pilot joined the server and get in the jet, there was like a 90% chance I could kill him. But like the people that only played jets in BF4, like the dogfighters that are in the dedicated discords, literally insane, like very good. And I would put up a fight with them, but they would always just sort of eke out that fight.
Yeah, and then, you know, they dumbed stuff down in 2042, and then we saw all these guys like I said Focus was in the chat. I think even he started on Nightbird at the start, and then he just got bored because he was like, this is just too easy, probably. And Silk did the same. Like, he mastered the Nightbird, was getting like ridiculous kill streaks, and then went, oh, this is just kind of too easy. So you lower the skill ceiling for everybody else, but you're also doing it for the best players.
Yeah,
you know, so
Focus. I don't know if you're in the chat, if you want to comment on that, but
it's like, you can't nerf football because Messi exists. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just doesn't really make a lot of sense sometimes. But maybe the skill floor needs to be a bit lower. Maybe they kind of needed to also convey to people, oh, guys, there's this mechanic for the jets, and this is how it works. Because people came to my channel to figure it the fuck out, you know? Like, that's literally what I built my first subs on, was like, people like, oh, there's this whole world of like flying jets. What? You know, that the game doesn't tell you. So
I think
it's such a complex game, they could have some more tutorials, to be honest.
No, for sure. And that's always something that I've felt Battlefield lacks entirely. They need fully fleshed out training range. I think that's a bare minimum requirement for modern games at this point, regardless of its casual or competitive. BF4 had that, you know, what is it, over a decade ago. So bring that back. And then one thing I want to touch on with vehicles, how do you feel about the BF5 way, where they kind of really heavily focus on the ammo aspect of vehicle design? And I think, you know, we'll take a look at the BF4 attack heli and how dominant attack heli teams can be in that game. I think the key to maybe sort of reel in the kill potential of those attack helis is you need to look at the way gunner ammo is handled. Now, whether you assign a certain amount of ammo, max ammo they can carry, reload times or something, you basically have to heavily focus on the ammo uptime / amount that the heli teams have. But it's very delicate balance, because if you give them too much, the ammo restriction doesn't matter, because they're going to get locked by a stinger, and where are they going to fly? The resupply zone. But if you give them too little, the uptime like almost isn't enough. So
Yeah, because you're putting yourself in a lot of danger maybe as well to strafe and stuff.
Yeah, like for instance, if you gave the attack heli, to attack heli gunner, let's say the max ammo capacity for a gunner is 20 bullets, then you give them 1 reload. So in total you have 40 ammo. That would be like too little, in my opinion. I think you need to give them. We could start with 4 reloads. So you start with 20 or 30, and then you give them 3 reloads. But
so I don't know if you noticed this in the recent leaks, but the attack heli gunner seat always got 30 rounds. I think 30 rounds in like the past games.
Yeah.
And like in BF4, I think you needed like 5 rounds. So you were like, bam, 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 bam,
Yep.
you know, you kill like 5, 6 guys.
You slip thermal on
and yeah, and you just flew over. In Battlefield 6, they've got kind of a new approach where you get 12 rounds, and it's very fast rate of fire. So you get this little like almost like a micro burst. Then it's a reload. Then you get another burst, and I think that maybe
that's how they're
the
doing
way
it.
that
Okay.
Maybe, yeah, but it does seem like the reload is like extremely quick. I want to say it's like half a second.
But do you get unlimited ammo, or is it limited ammo?
You had limited ammo. Like I think there was like, you know, but it was like I think I saw 1,500 rounds or something.
1,500?
Yeah, which is ridiculous. So they probably want to rein that in a little bit. But
I haven't seen this actually.
Really? Okay.
1,500.
Yeah. I could be bullshitting. I don't know. They had a lot. It didn't seem like it was an issue. But like I think attrition with air vehicles in general it's kind of like doesn't matter for jets because you're just flying away anyway. Like you
yes, that was my point.
You do 180. Oh, I've got to go back to the ammo attrition thing in the sky or whatever. Big deal. I'll just do that. Maybe more of a deal for helicopters because you don't want to leave like the area if you're deep into enemy territory. It's kind of a blag, right, to get back to base. So I'm not sure it's like a one size fits all solution, or that it's really going to matter that much for air vehicles in general.
And you touched on attrition there. BF5 with the vehicle attrition. We noticed resupply stations in the BF6 leaks, and I think there was another separate leak where David Serland mentioned something about making sure the vehicle resupply points are in center, like basically the center flags of the map. Because in BF5, you had multiple resupply stations that were kind of back in the uncap, which led to tanks sitting in the back, never going too far away from the resupply stations. I think that's an interesting idea because it does make the vehicles, right, the tanks. You can't really sit in the back of your map unless you're going to drive all the way back to your uncap. So you either have to go all the way back to your uncap, or you have to actually go in the center flags. I think that's the direction they should take with that. Now, whether or not people want vehicle attrition or like how it's balanced, that's another conversation. But I think that's interesting.
Yeah. I think the power it's always been one of the hardest things to balance in a Battlefield game, and a lot of infantry players seem to be of the opinion that they should be able to solo any vehicle.
Oh my god, don't even get me started.
Anytime. And like, do you not realize that if that was the case, nobody would go in vehicle? There would be no point going in a vehicle.
The people that stand in the middle of an open field with a stinger while I have flares and I kill them unironically 18 times a game without them ever changing strategy, then they complain the vehicles are overpowered. It's like, dude, you are not playing the game correctly.
Yeah, and that's also the thing as well. You end up with some teams, like, and you'll know this, that just have insane anti-air. They just shut you down like that. And I quickly realize, okay, I'm not getting anything done in the jet.
Yeah, no, it's over.
I'm just not going to spawn in the jet. Like it's done. But then you'll have some games where they just don't do a thing, and
they simply do not react.
Yeah, so it's almost like the last final bastion of team play in Battlefield that you actually really need good air defense.
Yes, and you also really need good team play to keep that air vehicle up. Like, this example is not really valid because of how broken the vehicle was. The super hind at the beginning of 2042, particularly season 1 super hind. You guys will in the chat will know that I reminisce about how just disgusting this vehicle was. The most overpowered vehicle, in my opinion, ever added to Battlefield by far. We're talking about transport helicopter. It's not. It has a full auto 50mm cannon, dual miniguns, dual repair seats, climbs faster than the Little Bird while it's 3 times the size with more health. Like, the amount of anti-air we would encounter, if you guys remember this in the chat, I'm not joking, 18 people, I think, one match were shooting stingers at us. And we were still not dying. That's how broken it was. So they need to they need to avoid that design. What do we want BF6's gunplay to be like? I mean, from the leaks, it looks like they're continuing with the system that they started implementing in BF5 in 2042 and now BF6, where burst firing appears to be playing less of a role, and the guns are definitely overall easier to understand how to use. And they're pretty laser beamy from what I've seen. They look less accurate than the 2042 weapons for sure, especially released 2042. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think they definitely at all costs need to avoid the crazy laser beam, like 100+ meter weapons that they had in 2042 at release. I really thought the bursting in Battlefield 4 was pretty good. I felt like it, presented a good skill gap there, and it was a skill you had to learn. So I'd like to see that come back. I mean, a lot of the leaks I've seen, I think it's just people who don't know how to control recoil. So it sort of looks like there's mad recoil and spread and stuff, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" But then you see somebody who actually knows how to play the game.
They're beaming,
and then all of a sudden it looks kind of beamy. So you're like, "Huh."
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but
I
guess
100% agree with you.
They can
I'm sorry,
tweak it, right?
Yeah.
No, yeah, continue. Yeah.
I 100% agree with you. They definitely need to make burst firing way more important. They need to return to that BF4 system. One thing I think really skews people's opinions is suppression. I think people look at suppression and they don't realize how much it's actually affecting their gameplay, and then they blame it on the gunplay. So I think the fact that suppression is most likely not going to come back in a way that affects gunplay is huge. And you could really build off the BF4 burst fire system, maybe tighten up the most important thing about it, which is SIPs, spread increase per shot. You could tighten that up slightly to make the weapons able to be full autoed at, let's say, 10-meter longer distance. However, you would still have to burst fire at those longer ranges. And the most important thing about burst firing, and I've made, I don't even know, 15 videos about this, and it's still people don't understand it. The reason why spread is in Battlefield is because it is the best solution to controlling weapon engagement distances. End of story. There is no better way to do it. People always say, increase recoil a bunch. What are we going to do? Like, you would need to have PUBG level recoil. Literally. The Battlefield player base, they're not interested in that. They would never be able to play that game. Could you imagine Battlefield players, controller players, and all these people trying to control PUBG level recoil in a Battlefield title? It's not going to happen. And then people say, give the weapons a pattern or whatever. BF4 weapons had patterns. It's just you had to burst in order to extend the range of your weapon.
I felt like in BF3 specifically, I would say actually that there were more weapons where you had to pull left or right in
Yes,
addition to down. Like there
exactly.
was more horizontal recoil. You don't want equal horizontal recoil, of course, because
Mm-mm.
that's like terrible. But there was a lot that had, much more left or right pull, and I feel like that's just kind of gone. Like every weapon now, you just pull down.
Yes.
That's it.
In 2042, the recoil patterns are you shoot at a wall, it is straight vertical.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
need to bring back those biases, right? Whether it be a left bias or right bias, on top of spread really playing a factor and burst firing coming back. Um, it's just the clearest thing I've ever seen for a Battlefield game.
yeah.
The solution for me is completely obvious. It's always been obvious. Um, People love to say BF5 had the best gunplay. I I've pissed off a lot of people on the topic of BF5 gunplay. BF5's gunplay is actually, in my opinion, objectively the worst gunplay in the entire franchise. It's horrible.
Yeah.
And it's subtle though. So the casual player base doesn't understand why it's bad. But when you get to a certain skill level, you go, holy shit, the recoil's actually completely random. And they decoupled the point of aim from screen center. So you're aiming with a randomly influenced floating point.
Yeah.
Does not feel good. It's
No.
horrible. And I guess people don't know this because console for the longest time had less recoil. Same with 2042, it still has less recoil to this day. So the console player base doesn't notice it. The little mechanics, they're less noticeable. And then with Battlefield 5, how strong SLRs were. Like you remember the Turner SMLE and the G43. Those weapons really weren't affected by the things full auto weapons were. So there were just a lot of cases where you could actually miss the things that were wrong with the BF5 system and the way it functioned, which is really unfortunate because, yeah. It was not.
I mean, they did say, like, I think they went back and looked at all games, and I hope they sort of took notes from all of them. I think they said at some point we want to take all the best parts from all the best Battlefield games.
Yes.
So hopefully they've also disregarded all the worst parts from all the worst Battlefield games as well. But like, there's already a really controversial thing in BF6, which is of course the different ammo types. Which for anybody who doesn't know from the leaks, but in the gunsmith system, you can equip different types of ammunition, and they change the headshot multiplier. I want to say anywhere from like 0.23 to like 2.56 or something. I can't remember exactly, but
yeah.
How do you balance that?
You don't. What you do is, and I'm dead serious, you don't balance that. What you do is you remove that. I'm 100% serious. You cannot have an ammo type that, let's say the base headshot multiplier is for ARs 1.7. You cannot have an ammo type that suddenly makes the headshot multiplier 2.7 or 2.5. Because what you're doing is you are actively basically throwing BTK balance like out the window, because at that point you are reducing the weapon's BTK with a headshot by 1 and maybe even 2 in some cases, which again it directly affects time to kill. Headshot multipliers should be set. They should not be changed via any attachment, and that's my opinion. I'm a hardline stance against any sort of ammo type that changes that.
You can make SMG deal 52 damage in the head, somebody says.
Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You know what that does? So let's say the SMG has 900 RPM. Like SMG is going to have high RPM. That is probably, if you did the math, if someone wants to do the math, I'd love to know the exact number. 900 RPM, 2 BTK is what? 50 MS TTK? You're getting instantly killed. You
That's almost my ping, dude.
Yeah, like you are killing people with Ghost Gaming's ping to the server. So like, what the fuck?
Did you not remember I think in 2042 when they nerfed the Vector? Like, and I think they did a blanket nerf to the headshot multipliers for all the SMGs.
Yes.
Because the Vector was like a problem because of the rate of fire, and people just kept getting so many lucky kind of random headshots with it. that the TTK was just kind of through the roof and like exacerbated by the rate of fire of SMGs and a lot of
It's
the
because
lower rate of fire ones.
the discrepancy
Yeah.
between the body shot BTK and the headshot BTK was so nuts because
Yeah.
at range, the drop off was a lot, but if you hit a headshot, it's like boom, like that's 40 damage, 50 damage, whatever it was.
Yeah.
It's
Like
crazy.
you almost get one framed or something, it feels like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like it would change it from a 5.6 BTK to a 2.3 BTK.
Yeah.
So they
is
can't
this
have
is
that.
this one of those systems like the class system where they're like, oh, this is going to be in the game, guys? Like,
Yes. I don't think they'll change it. I don't.
Yeah.
If anything, I think they will reduce the amount the ammo changes headshot multipliers. I do not think they will completely change what these ammo types do. They should do that, but they won't. You're right about that. It's like the class system. I'd be surprised to see them completely go away from it.
Yeah. There's also other things in the class system I really don't agree with, like double primaries for the assault class, double launchers for engineers. Like,
I don't think double launch. Okay, I'll say this. I don't think double launchers for engineer is making it through labs. I really don't. That would be insane if they didn't, because they took it away in 2042. If you think about it, lists you can't have list missile and recoilless.
Yeah.
So I genuinely don't think. I think assault can have double grenade launcher too. I don't think that'll make it through labs. I don't think so.
No.
If that is in the case.
It feels like if it was a bug, they would have fixed it though. And like, who was the guy who put his hand up was like, I've got an idea. Can we have double launchers? Like, said like, yeah, great idea.
Fantastic.
No, that never happened. Like, you should have shut that guy down right there and then. But like, okay, you can just leave this meeting. Like, your input is not required.
Go over there and sit down.
Like that's what kind of worries me a bit. Anyone could probably tell you that kind of stuff is going to be overpowered.
Yeah. The double primary though, that is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say they don't class lock weapons, and let's say they also don't get rid of I think it's the assault class, right? The assault class has double primary.
Yeah.
Dude, assault rifle shotgun, assault rifle SMG, shotgun SMG, like sniper shotgun, like holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you ever play another class, especially if people are complaining about this, but allegedly BF6 Assault has like, med pens.
Yeah.
If they don't nerf the med pens and they get double primaries, I'm playing that class.
Like, in my opinion, it kind of throws the whole strategy around balancing your weapon in the gunsmith around having a magazine or not. Like, what kind of size magazine do you want? How fast reload and whatnot? That kind of just goes out the window if you can just press a button and you have another primary ready to go. It doesn't need to be reloaded. Surprisingly, a lot of people's reaction to this is they're kind of like, it's not a big of a deal. Like, I don't see this being. People said to me, oh, COD has, what is it called? Is
Overkill.
It Overkill, yeah, the perk. They've had this for years. I'm like, this is not really directly comparable to COD, right? Not in terms of game size or anything.
Yeah.
You're and also like the other perks in COD are ridiculously overpowered to what you can get in Battlefield sometimes. So you're
stopping power to Battlefield.
Yeah. Sleight of hand, stopping you.
Add stopping power and then don't change the ammo headshot multipliers. So give me one less body BTK and then also let me change the headshot multiplier to like 2.7. Like a 2 BTK assault rifle. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Big disagree on that one being in there, but who knows? Maybe they'll make some changes.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on armor plates?
I don't want them.
Okay. There was a thing in 2042. I'm not sure if it still applies. You put the armor plate in. You headshot somebody. It would not headshot them. It would destroy the armor plate. I'm pretty sure that was a thing.
Yeah.
In 2042. And of course, people say, they don't like them because it makes fights inconsistent and it changes the BTK of weapons and all that sort of thing. They changed that moose. Okay, yeah, okay. But that was a thing where you put the armor plate on your chest and it protected you from a headshot.
Yeah, they changed that. Yeah, they made it so your head is actually not protected by armor.
Yes. I do not care if they remove armor plates. If they put armor plates in the game, I'm going to use them. However, they can remove them and I will be just fine.
Yeah. To me, it's just a readability thing.
Yeah.
Pretty much. That's the only thing it comes down to. I don't really think it adds much to the game. It's just kind of there. Of course, it's going to be in the Battle Royale, which we actually haven't talked about at all.
Yeah, maybe we could talk that. We could talk about that at a. I mean, do you want to talk about that? I don't know how much time you have or how long we want to make this, but
I can talk about it if you want to talk about it.
We'll talk. Chad, we're gonna talk about the Battle Royale. We're just going. We're just going. We can talk about the Battle Royale. So I got shit on for this. I continue to. In multiple tweets, multiple videos. I am absolutely adamant that EA is aware their core player base is not a fan of Battle Royale. EA is aware they don't want it. EA is also aware that that core player base is minute compared to the potential of a successful Battlefield Battle Royale, which is the entire point of them doing it again. People bring up Firestorm and Hazard Zone. Oh, they both failed. And they don't care. They brought in the big guns for this. They brought in Byron Bede, who I think created Warzone. And the speculation around the Battle Royale is that it will be most likely quite similar to Warzone, done in a Battlefield style, on top of it being free to play. My position is, even if you don't like Battle Royales and Battlefield, you don't like the idea, you're not interested, you're not going to play it, even if you don't like it or you're not going to play it, you should actively be rooting for it to succeed. Because if that succeeds, it's humongous for Battlefield. It will drive players to the multiplayer. It will overall be a big success point for the game. And I see people express concern like, oh, we don't want this to happen in Battlefield, the same thing that happened with Warzone or something, where Warzone becomes their main focus and the multiplayer falls by the wayside. I don't think that will happen with Battlefield, because I think Battlefield's multiplayer portion is significantly less replaceable than Call of Duty's multiplayer portion. So I think at this point, they're going to do it. Let's hope it's good. Because we can't go, EA, stop. Don't fucking release this. They're going to release it. So
yeah, it's coming. Yeah, I'm kind of two minds on this, because like I've never really enjoyed Battle Royales. So like I don't really care in a sense, as long as it doesn't detract from the other game modes, like the main game modes. But if I am going to get into a Battle Royale, it's probably going to be this one. Like if they can make the vehicles play well in it, and that's kind of like they can apply their special Battlefield formula to Battle Royale, like I do think it could have potential. And just like you were saying, there is a massive audience out there of people who have their group of friends. They come home from school or work, they log on, they jump on with the boys, and they're playing whatever game, whatever Battle Royale extraction shooter that they can get on, right? And I think a lot of people or groups of players like this, they constantly hop between games, and whatever new hot game comes out, they jump on that. But Battle Royale is pretty old at this point. We're talking 2017, when like DayZ and then PUBG's coming out. That's like 8 years ago. So it's hardly like the cool new thing. And I think a lot of people do just like to label it as it is pretty unoriginal, right? I mean, everyone's just been copying each other doing it. I mean, look at Splitgate 2 and that whole thing. Nobody seemed that excited when they announced the Battle Royale, right? They were like, oh, yay, cool, man. So, Yeah, I don't know. It's not the most original thing they could have
No,
done.
it's not.
But it could work. It could work. We really don't know anything about it though.
Yeah, there was that. I think there was the temporal leak, or someone else leaks the details about it, where like it would go through all the little things, and I think there was assignments that were detailed and all this, basically bounties from Warzone. Byron Bead, I'm not gonna lie, but from the leaks, it sounded like Byron Bead quite literally made Battlefield Warzone.
Yeah, I could believe that.
So we'll see. We'll see. From the leaks, it sounds like they brought back the Ring of Fire from BF5 Firestorm. That's gonna be sort of the identity of it. People have their opinions about, you know, Firestorm, but it's different this time because Firestorm was behind a paywall. This is gonna be free to play, which is makes all the difference in the world.
I'd just like to point out, by the way, that in Battle Royales, you do have 2 primary weapons. So, I'm just saying, as a thing.
Very
I have no idea if there's any connection there. Whether they did a little oops or something. But yeah.
We'll have to see how the classes play between the BR and the multiplayer, because that would be very interesting if that is the reason. Because maybe they actually want to keep the classes the same between the BR and multiplayer. They figured, okay, well,
yeah,
Assault is going to be able to carry 2 primaries, so
yeah, it could just be technicalities really that they can't have them closed because of Battle Royale. Like, you just need to be able to take whatever loadout. Like, you want to pick this assault guy and you want to take this primary weapon, and it has to be any weapon you want, or you open a crate or whatever, and oh, here's like a sniper rifle. I'm assault. Okay, I can take this sniper rifle and use it. Maybe it's just, you know, like some integral programming thing that would just be a huge pain in the ass for them to not do that.
Yeah. Oh man. This next Battlefield is so like, there's just so much riding on it. It's crazy. Like this is probably, God, it might be the most it might be the most anticipated. It might be the most anticipated FPS game in a while.
Oh yeah, I think so.
In a while. So
I think the hype is somewhat warranted more than usual this time though. Because
no, it is. It's kind of. I mean, I put out a video today. I was like, am I supposed to look at these leaks and not tell you guys what I'm fucking seeing? Like, this looks pretty good. I don't know. Like,
I was driving home listening to that, and I knew there'd be some haters in the comments.
That's fine.
So I checked when I got home, and I think this guy was going about, oh my god, like you're buying into the hype. And I've seen some people on Reddit saying similar stuff, but this time the main difference for me is that we actually have seen gameplay.
No, it's real. Normally, it's not like speculation. We can look at it.
Yeah. Like normally the hype is just based on that, like the Rendezvous cinematic that we got for 2042, and everybody lost their shit, myself included. By the way, I'm not trying to like take any blame away from myself in that way, but yeah, we hadn't even seen gameplay. Whereas this time, it's kind of just been all laid bare, probably more than they wanted.
Oh, for sure. Dude,
but for good or for worse,
we both made videos, I think, where it's like, what are they doing with the leaks? Because at one point, I don't think that these leaks are up now, but it took them a long time to take them down. They were like 4K 60 FPS, hour-long full rounds. I'm like, what the hell? Like, how is this on YouTube still? Because old EA, at least how I remember EA, old EA would have been like, yeah, we're sending you to jail. Like, we're shutting your whole channel down. We're sending people to get you. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, we're sending you to the labor camps in North Korea.
No, really, like we you cannot do this. That's about do it for the podcast. We went an hour and 30 minutes. We went over a lot of stuff. Went over movement, class system, battle royale, vehicles, that person getting banned, everything in between.
Yeah.
I was really fun. Thank you for being the inaugural guest on I don't know what I'm gonna call this. Crop talk, battle talk. I have no idea. We'll send it with crop talk initially. Thank you for coming on. If you want to use this on your own channel, you know, that's totally fine. Whatever, do that. W's in the chat. And I don't know who the next guest is going to be. Do you have any suggestions, Ghost? Who should I try to get? I tried to get AKA Art. He's not having it.
No. You tried talking to Kat?
Not
see
yet.
If she's up for it? No.
I could do that.
See if she's up for it. She
might
be up to it. You got Gravity? What about Gravity?
Oh, okay.
He's probably got a lot of... We didn't even touch on map design.
Oh my god.
Well, we'll leave that.
We're going to have to come back. We're going to have to come back.
For that. He's the man for that, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to come back anytime.
Yeah. We'll have a Ghost Gaming episode 2 probably within the next 2 or 3 months. So thank you guys for watching the podcast. And if you did enjoy, hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. See you guys in the next one.
Cheers, guys.